Welcome to the Safe Food Sampling and Demonstrations at Farmers Market and Community Events training presentation. This is part 1 of a 4-part series. I am Megan Baumler, recording the presentation developed by Suzanne Dreesen and Kathy Brandt, University of Minnesota Extension food safety educators. In this presentation, the key points of the 2014 Minnesota Safe Food Sampling Law will be reviewed. You will learn the basics, including what, where, and how product samples can be offered, and where you can find key resources which will help you comply with the special event food stand requirements of the law. You may pause the video at any time to take notes or view the online documents. The Safe Food Sampling Law allows vendors and food demonstrators to offer food samples at farmers markets and community events without obtaining a food license. There are lots of ways to provide food product samples in Minnesota for product promotion or educational purposes. Let's look at some examples. A farmer or grower can offer product samples produced from their farm or garden. They can add additional ingredients not grown on their farm, such as an apple slice with commercially prepared caramel. Previous sampling laws prohibited the addition or use of off-farm ingredients. Are you more likely to purchase something that you've tasted? Samples are an excellent way to promote and sell products. If you've attended fairs or expos, you've likely seen cookware being sold. Individuals offer food samples as part of the demonstration to increase the likelihood of selling more cookware. Nutrition educators prepare food and offer samples to promote food preparation and nutrition concepts at a community health fair. A chef demonstrates food preparation techniques and offers samples as a way of incenting the audience to try something new. The legislation states that the main ingredient of the sample must be a product sold by the vendor at the farmer's market or community event. In addition, the food or beverage product samples must be free. The size of the sample cannot exceed 3 ounces and must be offered as a single serving. Samples need to be in control of the vendor and need to be dispensed with a barrier to bare hand contact, such as gloves, tongs, or other utensils. No self-service is allowed unless proper utensils are provided, like soufflé cups for dips, toothpicks for cheese, or individual samples on small paper plates for serving bread. A frequently asked question is if samples can be prepared at home and served at the market. There are 2 answers, both yes and no. This gets a little confusing, so understand which is the right answer for the products that you want to sample. The answer is yes, but only for samples of home-prepared products allowed under the Minnesota Cottage law, like bread, jam and jelly, or home-canned acidic products like salsa and pickles. They can be prepared in a home kitchen and brought to the market or community event and offered as samples. The answer is no for all other food samples, and they must be prepared on site at the farmer's market or community event. Here's an example. Let's say you're selling fresh basil and tomatoes grown on your farm. You've decided that offering samples of bruschetta would let people taste how wonderful your products are. In this case, the bread can be baked and sliced at home since it's an allowed food under the Minnesota Cottage food law. The topping ingredients of basil and tomatoes would need to be prepared on site at the market since they are not allowed food items under the Minnesota Cottage food law. You'd need to bring the fresh tomatoes and basil to the market, wash them, chop them, and mix them for the topping that you would put on the sliced bread for your bruschetta samples. An option to on-site preparation is to prepare the samples in a licensed commercial kitchen and transport them to the market for dispensing. Depending on the types of food you want to offer as samples, you may want to reference the handout shown here. This provides an overview of the non-potentially hazardous foods that are allowed under the Minnesota Cottage Foods Law that are exempt from licensing. Signage lets customers know you're offering samples and what is being sampled and by whom. Some examples of appropriate signage include displaying a lid or jar with a label of the product being sampled, as shown with the jelly sample in the photo, or making a label for the single serving samples. If there's a central sampling or demo station, provide signage with the name of the vendor providing the product and the organization doing the food demonstration or preparing the product samples. Read your ingredient labels to see if the product contains any of the big 8 food allergens. If it does, bring the label with you. This is very important for people with food allergies, intolerances, or sensitivities. Include a food allergy warning sign if your sample contains one or more of the big 8 food allergens. These 8 food categories cause 90% of the food allergic reactions in the United States and include peanuts, tree nuts, fish, shellfish, milk, egg, soy, and wheat. For example, if you are sampling zucchini walnut bread, which of the big 8 food allergens might it contain based on a basic recipe? A basic recipe would likely include eggs, wheat, milk in the form of butter and/or milk, and walnuts. Remember to list the specific type of nut you use in your product. Let's look at some safe and unsafe food product sampling dispensing practices. You decide if the sample in the picture is a safe or unsafe practice. This looks safe because the samples are covered with a mesh dome to protect from environmental contamination, and the labels describe what samples are being offered and who is providing them. Is the dispensing practice used to sample this bruschetta a safe or unsafe practice? It is unsafe. Even though the samples are single serving, they are prone to environmental and customer contamination, and there's no signage. Think about these steps to make it safe. The chopped tomatoes for the bruschetta should not be left unrefrigerated for longer than 2 hours, so keep track of time. Prepare smaller quantities that allow better time and temperature control. Cover the product samples with plastic wrap to protect from environmental contamination. Offer single serving samples on a small plate. Label with a sample name and source. Post food allergy warning sign for the bread if it contains any of the big 8 food allergens. Is this a safe or unsafe sampling practice? This is safe. Samples are in covered single-serving cups. The vendor is dispensing the samples and can verbally identify the product name, contents, and source. Samples are kept in a leak-proof styrofoam cooler. Placing the cooler lids over the samples will help with temperature control. If the product needs refrigeration for safety, monitor the cooler temp with an appliance thermometer and the product temperature with a food thermometer. Do you think this is a safe or unsafe way to dispense candy samples? This is unsafe. It is self-service, however, it's not offered in single servings. It's also very likely that consumers taking a piece of candy will touch and contaminate the other samples. Is this a safe or unsafe dispensing practice of apple slice samples? It is safe. The apples are 3 ounces or less, individual servings with a single-use utensil. The cups are spaced out well, and the vendor has control over the samples. In this example, instead of signage, the vendor can verbally explain what the sample is, its ingredients, and source. What do you think about these sausage samples? Are they safe or unsafe? It's safe, however, pay attention to time and temperature controls for safety. The samples are 3 ounces or smaller individual servings with a single-use toothpick for eating. There is a small number of samples displayed at a time, and there is signage with the name of what's being sampled and the source. This is an example of a product that requires time and temperature control for safety. The sausage should not be left at room temperature for longer than 2 hours, and if it's a day that's hotter than 90 degrees, the rule is no longer than 1 hour. You want to keep unportioned sausages hot at a minimum of 140 degrees Fahrenheit until serving. Remember to add a food allergy warning to the product sign if it contains any of the big 8 food allergens, which are peanuts, tree nuts, fish, shellfish, milk, egg, soy, and wheat. How about the sauce samples? Safe or unsafe? This is definitely an unsafe dispensing practice. The sauces contain a common spoon and it looks like the chips are self-serve. What would you do to make this a safe sampling practice? With a gloved hand or serving utensil, place a few chips on a small plate or bowl and offer the sauce in individual souffle cups. In part 2 of this series, you'll learn the food safety requirements needed to prepare and serve samples safely. Is this a safe or unsafe way to dispense jelly samples? This is a very safe practice. Individual samples are in covered, single-use containers. The vendor is using gloves, which is not necessary if they use another barrier like a spoon to fill the cups. The label on the product is near the samples for consumers to reference the product name, source, and ingredients. You'll find great resources to help you plan, prepare, and serve safe samples, which will ultimately increase your sales. This Safe Food Sampling Tips handout focuses on safe food handling tips to minimize the risk of foodborne illness and can be found on the University of Minnesota Extension Food Safety website shown here. This checklist summarizes what is needed to comply with the food code requirements for a special event food stand. This Safe Food Sampling Worksheet incorporates the special event food stand food code requirements that you must follow. The worksheet was created by the Minnesota Farmers Market Association as a tool for you to document your plan for safe food sampling or food demonstrations. It's available on the University of Minnesota Extension Food Safety website as a downloadable and editable fill-in form. Completing this worksheet or similar document is not a requirement of the sampling law, but rather it's a planning tool to help you think through the food handling steps to sample food products safely. However, the sampling legislation gives health inspectors the right to request from vendors and food demonstrators who offer samples information about their samples and food safety procedures. It's a good practice to bring a copy of the worksheet with you whenever you are doing product sampling or food demonstrations and use it as a reference tool for you and any helpers you recruit to help with your sampling efforts. Thank you for watching part 1 of this 4-part series, Safe Food Sampling and Demonstrations at Farmers Markets and Community Events.